What if everything you've been told about happiness is wrong, not slightly off, not missing a piece? Fundamentally, structurally wrong. What if happiness isn't something that happens to you, isn't a reward, isn't a destination, isn't the result of finally getting everything right, but something you are already capable of choosing, right now, exactly as your life is? That's not a motivational slogan. That's the core of one of the most quietly radical ideas in all of psychology. And once you really understand it, it changes everything. Stay with me, because what comes next might be the most useful thing you hear all week. Alfred Adler was a contemporary of Freud, but the two men could not have been more different in how they saw human beings. Where Freud looked backward into childhood wounds, into the unconscious, into everything that has already happened to you, Adler looked forward. He asked a different question. Not what made you this way, but what are you moving toward? Not what happened to you, but what are you doing with it? That shift is subtle, but it's everything. Adler believed that human beings are not driven by the past. We are pulled by the future, by goals, by a sense of where we are going and who we are becoming. And that changes the nature of suffering, of struggle, of happiness itself. Here's the first idea, and it might sting a little. You are not the product of your circumstances. That sounds harsh. It can feel dismissive, but Adler wasn't saying your pain isn't real. He wasn't saying your difficult childhood didn't matter, or that the hard things that happened to you were nothing. He was saying something more nuanced and more hopeful. Your circumstances do not determine your life. What you do with your circumstances does. Think about two people who grew up in the same household, with the same struggles, the same absence of warmth, or the same chaos, or the same loss. And yet, they become entirely different people. One carries bitterness. One finds meaning. The facts were identical. The path was not. That gap, that space between what happened and what we make of it, is where Adler believed real human freedom lives. And that space is where happiness becomes possible. But here's where it gets really interesting, because Adler didn't think happiness was about feeling good. He thought happiness was about connection, about being genuinely useful to others, about belonging, about what he called social interest. The idea that your well-being and the well-being of those around you are not separate things. They are deeply, structurally linked. We live in a culture that teaches us the opposite, that happiness is personal, that it's about optimizing your own life, your own body, your own productivity, your own peace. Self-improvement as self-establishing. But Adler would say, that road doesn't lead where you think it leads. A life turned inward, focused entirely on the self, tends to breed anxiety, not peace. Because human beings are not meant to be isolated. We are social creatures at our deepest level. And when we disconnect from that, when we shrink our world down to just ourselves, something fundamental goes missing. The antidote isn't grand. It doesn't have to be. It can be as simple as genuinely asking someone how they are and really listening to the answer. Helping a colleague without expecting anything in return. Showing up for a friend who is struggling even when you are tired. These small acts of contribution, Adler would say, are not side effects of a happy life. They are the substance of one. This is worth sitting with for a moment. Because so many of us are searching for happiness like it's hidden somewhere in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next version of ourselves. And Adler is saying, it's not hidden, it's present. It's in the texture of how you move through your days and how you treat the people around you. Now, there's another piece to this, and it's one of the most quietly liberating ideas in all of Adler's work. He believed that most of our suffering, not all, but most, comes from one source: the fear of not being good enough. The feeling, often unconscious, that we are somehow deficient, that we don't measure up, that if people really knew us, they would find something lacking. Adler called this the inferiority complex, and he thought it was nearly universal. Not because humans are broken, but because we are always comparing ourselves to something, to an ideal, to other people, to who we think we should be by now. And that gap between who we are and who we think we should be creates pain. But here's what Adler also saw: that feeling of inferiority. That sense of not being enough is often the engine of growth. The desire to improve, to contribute, to do better, it starts there. The problem isn't the feeling. The problem is when we respond to it by withdrawing, by hiding, by deciding that the risk of being seen is too great. That's when inferiority stops being fuel and starts being a prison. The way out, according to Adler, is not to silence that feeling. It's to redirect your energy away from the question, "Am I enough?" and toward the question, "What can I contribute?" That shift from self-evaluation to engagement with the world is, in his view, one of the most reliable paths to inner peace. And this isn't abstract. You've probably felt this yourself. The times when you feel most alive, most settled, most like yourself, are they usually the moments when you're lying alone cataloging your flaws? Or are they the moments when you're so absorbed in something meaningful, a conversation, a project, caring for someone, creating something, that you forget to evaluate yourself at all? That forgetting is not an accident. That is freedom. There's one more idea from Adler that I want to leave you with, because it's the one that tends to stop people in their tracks. He believed that happiness is not something you find. It is something you decide. Not in a toxic positivity way. It's not just choose to be happy as though suffering is a failure of willpower. He meant something deeper. He meant that your orientation toward your life, the meaning you assign to it, the story you tell about it, the direction you commit to, is to a remarkable degree up to you. Not entirely, not without constraints, but more than most of us allow ourselves to believe. The task isn't to wait for better circumstances. The task is to find meaning in the ones you have. The task is to keep moving toward connection, toward contribution, toward something larger than your own comfort. And that, in Adler's view, is what a happy life actually looks like. Not euphoric, not free of difficulty, but engaged, purposeful, connected, oriented toward the world rather than turned away from it. There's something deeply calming about this framework once it settles in, because it removes the pressure of having to arrive somewhere. It says, the quality of your life is not measured by what you've accumulated or what you've achieved or what you've been spared. It's measured by how you show up for others, for your work, for yourself, in the ordinary moments of an ordinary day. That is enough. You are enough. Not because you've earned it, not because everything is going well, but because you are here, capable of choosing, capable of contributing, capable of connection. And that has always been the whole point. If this way of thinking resonates with you, you might want to sit with one question today, just one. Not how do I become happier, but where can I be useful? Let that be the compass for just one day, and notice what it does to how the day feels. Small redirections, quiet choices. That's where Adler's happiness lives. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Don't forget to like the video. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.